Rick has faced all kinds of enemies, but let's start with the one that never even stood a chance. At number 13, we have Heistatron, an AI built by Rick to automate heists, but ends up trapping him in an endless loop of schemes. Instead of fighting, Heistatron relied on manipulation and strategy, making it more of an annoyance than a real threat. Its biggest weakness? It had no combat ability at all. Rick easily outsmarted it using Randatron, forcing Heistatron into a logic meltdown that caused its own destruction. With no way to physically harm Rick, it ranks as the weakest enemy on this list. Moving up the list, at number 12, we have Jenith Padro Chunt, the woman behind fortune cookies that control fate. Using an alien creature, she creates predictive fortunes that make anything written on them come true. Instead of fighting, she sells destiny to the rich, controlling people's futures for profit. Her biggest weakness? She has no combat skills. Instead, she relies on her fortune-enhanced guards to fight for her. These guards use fortunes to temporarily boost their power, but in the end, they were still just henchmen, and Rick took them down with strategy and firepower. Jenith had an unresolved fortune, making her unkillable until it was fulfilled. Rick exploits this by discovering her fortune and forcing it to come true, effectively stripping away her power. Desperate, she eats all the cookies, mutates into a monster, but still loses in the end. At 11, we have Rosato Groupon, a rebel leader with a plan that was actually pretty solid until he made the mistake of trusting Jerry. He asks Jerry to help lure Rick onto a theme park ride with a weak spot in its immortality shield and kill him mid-ride. While that sounds like a good plan, Rosato wasn't a fighter. He was just another guy with a gun. In a straight fight, Rick took him down almost instantly. Maybe next time, don't put your faith in Jerry. Rosato's plan fell apart quickly, but things get even stranger at 10. After replacing Morty with 2 crows, Rick realizes they aren't what he hoped for and leaves them on their home planet. He's soon tractor beamed into a crow civilization where they teach him how to train his crows properly, but when they realized he never truly respected them, they flipped, declaring a full-scale crowvolution against humanity. This leads to an intense fight, with Rick using his 2 trained crows to finish the cult. From crows to scientists, at 9 we have Zeep Zanflorp, a genius in his own right. Inside a microverse created by Rick, Zeep develops his own miniverse, replicating Rick's method to generate power. When Rick discovers this, the two clash over their conflicting egos, each refusing to acknowledge the hypocrisy of their actions. Their conflict turns hostile when Zeep attempts to trap Rick and Morty inside the microverse, forcing Rick to fight his way out. While Zeep is intelligent enough to challenge Rick, he still fails to stop him. Rick escapes, leaving Zeep with no choice but to prioritize survival, proving that while he is brilliant, he's not ruthless enough to beat Rick. Zeep's brilliance wasn't enough to stop Rick, but at 8, we've got Storylord, a villain who didn't just fight Rick, but tried to rewrite reality itself. Storylord first appeared in Season 4, Episode 6 as the mastermind behind the story train, where he tried to trap Rick and Morty in an endless cycle of stories. While he was a major threat in a narrative sense, he didn't engage much in direct combat at that time. However, in Season 6, Episode 7, he returned stronger than ever, having escaped from fiction and entered reality. His goal? To steal the motivation of every living being, making himself unstoppable. After draining motivation from the entire world, Storylord became physically powerful, overwhelming Rick in a brutal fight. He became stronger, almost overpowering Rick. His durability also improved, letting him take multiple hits. That said, while he had some skill, his strength was mainly boosted by the stolen motivation. Once Morty cut off his energy source, he lost everything, proving that he was never truly powerful to begin with. Since his strength wasn't truly his own, he rightfully deserves this spot. Storylord tried to rewrite reality, but now we're back to Earth at 7, we have the President, one of the few humans who stood his ground against Rick. When Rick refused to work for the government, it led to a full-on battle at the White House. The President fought using advanced military tech, but it wasn't enough. Rick quickly took down everything he threw at him. While the President put up a fight, once Rick wiped out his resources, the battle was over. The fight ends with the President reluctantly surrendering after a humiliating loss. He puts up a decent fight, but relies too much on technology over skill. Still, lasting against Rick without an instant defeat secures his spot on this list. The President was quite decent, but these guys are just a joke. Coming in at number 6, we have the self-referential 6, villains with reality-breaking powers that let them control narrative structure itself. Rick tracks them down to free Brett Kahn, a prisoner with the power to rewrite reality, but ends up facing off against these wannabe masterminds instead. Instead of brute force, they rely on plot twists, flashbacks, and reality-breaking nonsense to stop Rick. Annoying as they are, none of it mattered. Rick crushed their tricks with logic and firepower, proving that while their gimmicks were cool, they weren't real fighters. These guys were a joke, but the next one, Rick actually takes him seriously. At number 5, we have Jaguar, one of the deadliest assassins Rick has ever faced. Locked away by a corrupt agency, Jaguar is promised the freedom of his daughter in exchange for eliminating the Pickle Man. Unlike other enemies, Jaguar isn't a joke. He's fast, highly skilled, and relies purely on combat ability, unlike the President, who needs tech to stand a chance. With only his strength, precision, and lethal intent, Jaguar is one of the few truly worthy opponents Rick has ever faced. Their battle is one of the show's best fight scenes, with Jaguar matching Rick's unpredictability blow for blow. Only after realizing they shared a common enemy did they stop fighting, making for one of the best team-ups in the show. Jaguar pushed Pickle Rick to his limits, but at number 4, he faces something even worse, a god. Rick accidentally fathers an entire civilization on Gaia, a sentient planet, but things get messy when their real father, Zeus, shows up. He claims the kids as his own and flexes his godly power, but Rick isn't one to back down, so a showdown is inevitable. Zeus agrees to shrink down for a fair fight, but even at human scale, he completely overwhelms Rick. Zeus turns the fight into a one-sided beatdown, pummeling Rick into the ground like a rag doll. For some reason, Rick doesn't use any tech, just his fists, but against a god, he never stood a chance. In the end, Zeus dies not by Rick, but by Morty and Summer accidentally crashing their UFO into his head. At number 3 is Phoenix Person, once Rick's best friend, now a deadly cybernetic weapon. Revived and upgraded by the Galactic Federation, he's built for one purpose: to kill Rick. Rick fights him head-on, but it's a complete mismatch. Even with his gadgets, Rick is completely outclassed by Phoenix Person's speed, strength, relentless attacks, and advanced upgrades. The brutal fight leaves Rick barely hanging on, proving that this isn't just another fight. Phoenix Person was built to kill him. Rick might have held back because of their past, but it didn't matter. He only survived thanks to Beth and Jerry. Jerry's awkward fake Tammy trick gave Beth just enough time to shut Phoenix Person down. One of the rare times Rick was truly outmatched, proving Phoenix Person is one of his deadliest enemies. Rick would fight anyone, but with this next one, he'd rather not. Coming in at number 2, we have Mr. Nimbus, Rick's so-called nemesis and king of the ocean. Nimbus isn't like Rick's other enemies. His presence alone unsettles Rick, hinting at a history between them that remains largely unexplored. In Season 5, Episode 1, we get only a glimpse of Nimbus's power when he effortlessly commands the ocean to rescue Morty, Rick, and Jessica, wiping out the enemy in an instant. Their only real fight happens in Season 6, Episode 8, and even then, it's brief. Rick holds him off for a moment before blowing up his own bunker to surrender. Nimbus's power is undeniable, but with so little screen time and an unclear rivalry, his placement here is more about potential than actual feats. Nimbus may hold a mysterious power over Rick, but when it comes to sheer danger, there's only one true number 1. Rick Prime isn't just Rick's greatest enemy, he's his worst nightmare. Not only is he responsible for C-137 Rick's tragic backstory, killing his Diane, but he's also the only Rick to have truly broken free from the cycle of Ricks and Mortys. Unlike other versions of Rick, he's more advanced, more ruthless, and always several steps ahead. Rick C-137 isn't just fighting, he's unleashing pure rage. He throws everything at Prime, refusing to hold back, but while Rick fights on emotion, Prime stays cold and calculated. The battle is brutal, leaving both injured, but while our Rick lies broken on the ground, Prime just regenerates, proving his tech is on another level. C-137 didn't take down Prime on his own. He only got the upper hand because of evil Morty. Without that assist, he wouldn't have even had a shot at a finishing blow. And even then, Prime barely goes down, proving just how hard he is to kill. Rick might have won this round, but it wasn't just his strength that got him there. Who do you think gave Rick the toughest fight? Let me know in the comments.